I showed up at their family reunion in a Rolls-Royce, diamond sparkling, and my own security team by my side. My arrival stopped conversations, froze champagne glasses mid-air, and left his mother, Beatrice Wellington, looking like she'd swallowed ice. She had spent 3 years thinking she could erase me from Gabriel's life, thinking humiliating me, threatening me, and manipulating him would keep me away forever. She was wrong. Dead wrong. Before I tell you how I went from being the girl they tried to destroy to the woman who tore their dynasty apart, let me take you back to where it all began. They say love is blind, but honey, love isn't supposed to be stupid. I learned that the hard way, the day I met Gabriel Wellington. I was a chef at an upscale downtown restaurant, pouring every ounce of my soul into the food I made. Cooking wasn't just a job, it was art, passion, and my way of expressing love to the world. My grandmother used to say I had magic in my hands, and every night in that kitchen, I proved her right. It was a normal Tuesday evening when everything changed. The dinner rush was chaotic, orders flying in from every direction. Our head waiter rushed into the kitchen, his face flushed. "Chef, there's a man at table 12. He wants to meet you personally. He says it's the best meal he's ever had." I wiped my hands, adjusted my chef's coat, and stepped out into the dining room. That's when I saw him. Tall, elegant, with warm brown eyes and a smile that made the chaos fade away. "Are you the artist behind that masterpiece?" he asked, pointing at the empty plate in front of him. His tone was genuine, respectful, almost reverent. We spoke for 20 minutes, just the two of us. The restaurant existed in the background, but all I could see was him. That moment felt like finding a piece of myself I didn't know was missing. After that night, Gabriel started coming every week, always requesting my special dishes, always staying to talk after service. He was different, educated, confident, and kind. He asked about my dreams, my recipes, my family. He listened when I told him about growing up with my grandmother after my parents died, about juggling 3 jobs to put myself through culinary school, about my goal of opening my own restaurant. For 6 months, we fell into a beautiful rhythm. He never pressured me. He never made me feel indebted. We walked the city streets for hours, talking about everything and nothing. Tuesday nights became the highlight of my week. Then, one evening, he invited me to dinner at his apartment. I assumed a nice downtown apartment, nothing fancy. But when a black car pulled up, taking me through massive iron gates toward a mansion straight out of a magazine, my heart nearly stopped. "Aliyah," he said, holding my hand, "I should have told you sooner. My family owns Wellington Industries. I'm not just Gabriel, I'm Gabriel Wellington." The words hit me like a freight train. Billionaires. Power. Prestige. Everything I wasn't. Part of me wanted to run, to protect myself from a world I didn't understand. But when he said, "You're still the woman I fell in love with," I chose trust. He wanted me to meet his family. And that's when I first met Beatrice Wellington. Imagine elegance multiplied by 10, then add a layer of ice sharp enough to freeze hell. That was her. Silver hair, pearls, eyes that scanned me like a threat. She greeted me with a smile, venom lurking behind it. "You must be the cook Gabriel's been telling us about," she said, emphasizing the word cook like it was a disease. Gabriel corrected her gently. "Chef, mother. Aliyah is an incredibly talented chef." But the damage was done. Her eyes told me I wasn't a person to her. I was a problem. Dinner that night was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Every compliment had a sting. Every question, a trap. When Gabriel spoke of my culinary achievements, she smiled and redirected attention to people and places I'd never known. By the end of the evening, the man I loved had changed, shrinking under her gaze. And this was just the beginning. Over the following months, Beatrice launched a campaign against me. Small things at first, plans cancelled for family obligations, phone calls interrupting dates, mysterious people watching me. Then it escalated. Investigators dug into my family history, turning private pain into ammunition. My father's bankruptcy during my mother's cancer treatment. The small house I grew up in. My grandmother's modest pension. Every struggle weaponized. The confrontation came when I walked into Gabriel's apartment to find stacks of papers detailing every painful aspect of my life. "My mother thinks you're using me," he said, his voice trembling. "She says your whole story about being a chef and your dreams, it's all an act to get close to our money." I stood there, silent, watching him doubt me. The man I loved, who had eaten my food and walked city streets with me, questioning my heart. 3 days later, the Wellington family staged an intervention. Beatrice, William, and Caroline sat like judges in a courtroom. William offered me $100,000 to walk away. Beatrice promised that if I refused, my life would be destroyed. My restaurant, my reputation, everything. I refused. And they followed through. Critics who had praised my cooking turned on me. Suppliers cancelled contracts. My restaurant let me go. And then my grandmother fell ill, the stress of watching me attacked and her age overwhelming her frail body. She passed 2 weeks later, leaving me alone and determined. That's when I snapped. I used my grandmother's insurance money and inheritance to disappear, not physically, but spiritually and emotionally. For 6 months, I rebuilt myself. I studied Wellington industries, uncovering fraud, bribery, and exploitation spanning generations. I found other women they had destroyed and began to gather evidence. Meanwhile, I rebuilt my career. Under the name Chef Amora, I started catering for elite clients, celebrities, politicians, and business leaders. My reputation grew faster than I imagined. Then the breakthrough came. During a private dinner for a federal judge investigating corporate fraud, I learned the frustration he felt toward untouchable families like the Wellingtons. I called the judge the next day, providing him with the evidence we had gathered, financial records, witness testimonies, documents detailing bribes and cover-ups. 3 years to the day after Gabriel first tasted my food, the FBI raided Wellington Industries. But I wasn't done. The Wellingtons held their annual charity gala at the mansion where I had been humiliated. I bought a table. I arrived in a car worth more than most people's homes, wearing a designer dress and diamonds, radiating confidence. Conversations stopped. Eyes turned. Beatrice's champagne trembled in her hand. When the auction announced the liquidation of their assets, I raised my paddle and bought everything, the art collection, vintage cars, and the mansion itself. I transformed it into a transitional home for women escaping abuse or corporate exploitation. The room erupted in applause. I had taken their symbol of power and turned it into a sanctuary of empowerment. Gabriel approached me, confused, desperate, wanting to reconnect. I forgave him, but I didn't return. I had moved on. My focus was on building, not bitterness. The trials of the Wellington family began months later. Beatrice and William were convicted of fraud, bribery, and racketeering. Their empire was dismantled. Gabriel lost everything too, forced to start from scratch. Meanwhile, my life thrived. I expanded my catering business into 5 restaurants, founded the Aliyah Wellington Foundation, and helped hundreds of women rebuild their lives. I became a symbol that people like Beatrice Wellington couldn't destroy, the proof that determination, talent, and integrity outlast wealth and manipulation. The little girl who grew up cooking with her grandmother's guidance, learning love through her craft, was never less valuable than the boy raised in a mansion built on lies. I just had to claim my power. And claim it I did. Sometimes karma doesn't arrive on its own. Sometimes, it needs an assistant. And honey, I was more than happy to be that assistant.